With the changes made to the Chicago Bulls roster this offseason, many Bulls fans are more optimistic about the Bulls' chances at having a winning season. We're going to talk about why it's important that the Bulls do surprise and shock, or AK and Eversley may find themselves on a path of no return. We're talking about all that, plus dive into the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. And I want to talk about things from this perspective. The Chicago Bulls have made changes in the margins to this team and still are yet again betting on one of the young players really taking a step to help the Bulls get to new heights. And I do think that this is a make or break season in a way for the Chicago Bulls front office of Arturas, Karnisovas, and Mark Eversley. And the reason why I'm saying that is this. No, they are not at a risk to get fired at all. If you guys have been a lifelong Bulls fan like me, you know that once somebody has that president of basketball operations title, they tend to stick with that at least a decade. And so it's way too soon to be talking about AK and Eversley possibly getting fired. I'm letting you guys know right now that is not happening. But when I say it's make or break for the front office this offseason and why the Bulls need to have a winning record and just look solid throughout the whole season is because I mean make or break for the Bulls fan base. If AK and Eversley have not made the necessary moves and then let another trade deadline go by without improving the team, if we're struggling yet again, I tell you what, I've like I said, I've been in this Bulls community my whole life, and I already know some Bulls fans that at that point it would take the Bulls to maybe get to the Eastern Conference Finals before they're ready to turn around their view on AK and Eversley. And some Bulls fans may already be there, right? When you look at the number of draft picks that we've had, how many we sent out in like the Vooch deal and to get DeMar DeRozan, none of our young players really developing. This, as much as we talk about this being a year where we need to see growth from Zach LaVine, especially as a player, overall player, giving more effort on offense, more effort on defense, being more consistent and efficient on the offensive side of the ball. We can talk about Patrick Williams and how we want to see him really show some more signs of that player that they drafted with the 4th overall pick. We can talk about that. We can talk about Kobe White wanting to see development there. We can talk about Vooch. We can talk about Billy Donovan, the head coach. But at the end of the day, if a fan base does not have faith in the front office that are leading and guiding and building this team, it's a hard hill to overcome and get over if you fall too behind on the 8 ball there. And like I said, for some Bulls fans who've already there, we can have the conversation about, hey, what's the grade to give AK and Eversley for this offseason? I look really favorably on it. I think they traded into the draft. They got Julian Phillips. They re-signed all the players that they re-signed to this roster on favorable deals. They went out and got Torrey Craig and Javon Carter that are really going to fill some much-needed areas for the Chicago Bulls. And all that's fine and dandy. For me, the front office gets a solid B- in the moves that they made this offseason, right? I think when you also factor in the fact that this team, we were above, we didn't have any practical cap space, right? We basically went into this offseason with mainly just our mid-level exception to really improve this team. And this front office made some moves. Again, not amazing moves or knock out the park home run moves, but they made solid moves that are going to bring a much-needed skill set to this roster. And while I have predicted that the Bulls, on my sheet, are going to get about 45 wins this game and maybe even more, this season, maybe even more than that, if they if this team really comes together and those improvements in the margins end up paying off even more than what I think. But when it comes down to it, I really do think this is make or break when it comes to the Bulls fan base and their trust in this front office. If the Bulls shock, right? And Vegas odds have us at 36.5 wins. If the Bulls are able to come in, play consistently throughout the season, not lose as many tough games, win some of those in-between games, look formidable throughout the season, have 45 or more wins, I think you can start seeing a little bit more trust come from that Bulls fan base that's really ready to write off this team, the roster, the coach, and the front office. But this is a huge make or break season for that front office, for the faith of this team. And, you have some Bulls fans that are calling, stop going to games, things like that. It's little side pockets of the Bulls online community now. But that, as we've seen before, that can become a loud majority of the fan base if the Bulls continue to struggle. So whatever happens with AK and Eversley, we talked about, they set themselves up nicely. They have deals that are movable. They brought in players that are going to help the Bulls in the margins. They also have tons of assets to still improve this team. Mid-level exception, disabled player exception, full biannual exception. The Bulls still have these assets to add to this team. And if they do not, man, I don't know. I think that the full Bull fan base may riot a little bit. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. But it is Saturday, so that means that it's mainly built around your voicemails. We're going to get into this first voicemail. This one is from Casual Kelder.
Hey, man, it's Kelder again. Just telling you, congratulations again. I didn't realize that it had been 2 years. I'm kind of newer to your party, but you do a good job. One thing I really like is, it's kind of like the length is nice. So you can listen to one like some of these other podcasts that, hour and a half. They get a little bit old, they start dragging a little bit, but you focus, get right to the point. I appreciate that. Speaking of getting to the point, I should probably do that. Talking about development. With a couple of guys. Patrick Williams. I'm starting to come around. I'm trying to like this team because they're going to be together for the next 2 years. Coming around on Patrick that his development is slower than we probably would have liked, but it's better than like the way LaMelo Ball's been able to develop, or Jalen Green, or these guys on absolute terrible teams that have no accountability. Patrick has to do the things that they want to do to win. And I think he's building on stuff. First year, he was getting comfortable. Then he got hurt last year. He did improve, I think, especially with his shooting and his defense. He's going to continue to improve. Your caller yesterday had a great point about having the rotation so he can rebound better. Hopefully that can be something he works on, and then just ball handling and aggression. But he's a good kid, and I'm gonna start investing myself into rooting for the guy, even though I didn't ever want him on the team, but I guess he's there, so I should like. The other thing I was going to ask you about Dalen Terry, you said in your development thing about he has great upside. I want to know where you see it, because from my vantage point, granted, I'm a casual and I just watch on TV and stuff like that, but he can't shoot. He's not extremely athletic. He does run around with energy, but I just don't see really a thing that he does that makes him stand out to have high upside. I mean, at this point, I'd say his upside is maybe he's a rotation guy eventually, but I just want to know what you see there, because I hadn't seen it. All right. Congratulations again. Have a great day. Bye.
All right, Kelder, and you know what? I as much as I throw fun towards Kelder with calling him a casual, it's great to hear somebody say, "Hey, I'm trying to turn around." Now, I will say this: make sure that P. Will has to earn it, right? Just because you're a fan of this team doesn't necessarily mean that you have to blindly accept or anything from this team, the players, or anything like that. That's never what I want to push here. I do say let's be objective. And the fact of the matter is that P. Will has not come into a situation that most fourth overall picks do. And he hasn't been giving those development reps to really help him get his game to the next level. Some of it still is his mentality. And yes, he is coming along slower than we want. Hell, even somebody like me who still really likes P. Will and his potential here on this team understands he's coming along slower than what a lot of people want and need. And so ultimately, I mean, like I said before, there is a chance that P. Will just does turn into a role player. He may be a high-level role player. He may just be just a role player. That may be what his future is. We'll ultimately end up seeing he has so much potential to be more. And I like it to hearing people like Kelder kind of turn their views and be willing to be open to allowing people the chance and opportunity to show them a little bit more. You can't be mad at that. If he shows it, great. If he doesn't, hey, it is what it is. Now, as far as Dalen Terry, you said, what is the upside for Dalen Terry? I would say this, Kelder. Go and watch a lot of Dalen Terry's G League games. You will see, and that's not to say that it's going to be 1-for-1, but you'll see what his skill set is. Defense, intensity, getting out in transition. He's a great passer out in transition, and having that high energy role player. The shot, we've seen players without solid shots become still factors. I'm not saying that Dalen Terry is going to become this star level wing in the NBA level. I'm not saying that. He hasn't shown enough for me to even get to that, but he does have potential at the NBA level, especially as a defender and especially as an energy guy. And if this team was getting out in transition, if we become a more fast-paced team, you'll really get to see Dalen Terry's creativeness in the open court and his ability to kind of get around the rim and cut to the teeth of the defense, he's a slasher. But he's not going to have very many opportunities to do that on this team. Hell, he got to get minutes on this team first before we can say that. But that's kind of what I see in Dalen Terry. Like I said, I watch every single G League game as well as every Bulls game. And that's why we're doing the G League review this upcoming season, where once a week I'll be breaking down what happened that week over the with the Windy City Bulls over the week. So you guys will be getting that from me as well. I don't really think there's much Windy City Bulls coverage on YouTube or in podcasting in general, and I understand that. It's a G League team for a team that's struggling at the NBA level, but, we'll see. We'll see. But all right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Bulls Troy.
Good morning, Haize. It's your guy, Bulls Troy, down in Australia, the Whole Lot of Bull podcast. Mate, just a voicemail to say congratulations on your 2 years anniversary of the Chicago Bulls Central pod, and also all your other pods that have come along, the network you've started. Like, you've gone on to great things doing Locked On Bulls. You're now doing the Bleacher Report. Thank you for being an inspiration to everyone else who wants to go into content creating, like myself, guys at C-Red UK. You're a reason, mate, why a lot of us have got into this. Like, you are the number one guy in Chicago Bulls news breaking, podcasting, and, mate, we can't thank you enough. Congratulations. Enjoy the day, mate. Go Bulls, mate. You're a legend. Drip King. Take it easy, mate. Congrats. Looking forward to the next 2 years. Go Bulls.
Hey, thank you for the kind words. And like I said before, like, I got started into this by nothing but passion, and there's more than enough room for everyone. And so, like, hearing people like you or C-Red UK and those guys that really do give me some love and stuff like that, like, I appreciate it. Like, you guys are all extremely talented. And like I told you before, Bull Short, heck, I learned stuff listening to you. I learned stuff listening to C-Red UK. I love how we have our little inner Bulls creative content family here that's just continuing to grow, and I appreciate you guys so much, man. And yeah, I'll continue to rock with you. I want to have you on the show again. And, it means the world to me to just, when I started Chicago Bulls Central, I wanted to build not just a show, not just a podcast, not just a YouTube channel, which we're going to be up in the production quality around here, a little bit more graphics and overlays, but I wanted to create a community. That was the thing of people that's like-minded, that love the Chicago Bulls, that can talk about it all day long, and that's what I wanted to do with this. And so I'm really glad that it's really turning into that. And yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for the kind words, Bulls Troy. But let's go ahead and get to the next voicemail. This one's from Mike Jones is in the building. Let's go and listen to that now.
What up, Haize? Appreciate the show, man. It's Mike Jones. It's been a little bit since I called in with just some thoughts and a question, but I appreciate the content all summer long, man. Like I said, I'm looking forward to this next season. I think we're gonna do, and we'll have a lot of fun. At least we'll have a lot of fun on the channel and the group chat and the live chat. So, but anyways, I was listening to Gilbert Arenas' podcast. He had Keon Martin on there and a couple of other players, and they were talking about, like, what defines or what makes a bust. And I guess for me, I need to know from you two things. First and foremost, they brought up, like, Gilbert Arenas defined a bust as, like, you were the number one draft pick and they put, like, the team on your shoulders. Like, we're depending on you to take us back to or get us to where we never have been. And he defines a bust as somebody that just never tried. Like, bitch, you didn't try hard enough. And so, like, for me, I think what would you say would be the ceiling, or when you would be like, okay, because I mean, we did draft Patrick Williams High. When would you say would be like, okay, Pat, you might end up being a bust, or if you ever would say how it end up being a bust? I mean, for me, I think that he may end up just being like one of those decent players, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, he may be a bust, he may not be a bust in some people's eyes, but in my eyes, I think even if he can hit the potential of rebounding at a decent clip and at least providing corner threes, I mean, like I said, then, I mean, and he works his way to the bench and he has a solid career at doing that and playing good defense, then that's fine. But I mean, this Kawhi comparison, I think, is really like hurting him in a lot of ways, because I think a lot of people are just like, oh, well, you read the scouting report, they say, see Kawhi Leonard scouting report and all of that stuff. And it's just like, I mean, a guy may play like him a little bit, but their games may not be the same and their mentalities may not be the same, And then secondly, they was talking on the podcast about Eddie Curry and Tyson Chandler. And bro, I just can't believe, like, looking back now in retrospect, because we have that ability. I cannot believe we have both of them at the same time. Young guns too, bro. Like, that's still so crazy to me, man. Like, looking back on that time as a Chicago Bulls fan and just remembering like the days of like Tyson Chandler and, you know, Eddie Curry and Donyell Marshall, and we're depending on these guys to, like, you know, bring us through to the next level, man. That's a crazy time in Bulls basketball. I would love to hear some
Gilbert Arenas' comments on a bust. Like, here's what I'll say. There's a lot of different people use bust a lot of different ways, right? People use bust when a player doesn't live up to their own expectations, even if those expectations aren't really realistic. People call a player a bust. If you know, yeah, like you said, I do think clearly if you're drafted as the number 1 overall pick, that means that team saw you as a player that could change the direction of their franchise. And if you don't live up to that, even if you do turn into a role player, you're a bust. But as the number 1 overall pick, it's just the number, probably the top 3 picks in the NBA draft, right? Those are picks that I look at is that if you don't turn into at least, at bare minimum, right, a number 2 on a contending team, meaning that one of the better teams, to me, you may have earned that label of bust. Now, as far as like people like P. Will and stuff like that, like, I feel like it's way too early to try to label those players as bust, right? Because you have to look at the specific scenario. Yes, P. Will's going into his 4th year, but it's been he lost the 2nd year, or most of it, right? But on top of that, he has not gotten the necessary. I told you guys, like, most 4th overall picks get more shots in their first season than what P. Will got in his first 2.5 seasons. That's just the realisticness of it. So, you know, so I can't label somebody a bust who hasn't really been relied on. Their coach hasn't given them very many opportunities. They haven't taken many either, which is concerning, absolutely. But I can't label somebody personally. For my own personal views, I don't label somebody like that a bust, in my opinion. That's just not what I look at as a bust. And even if P. Will does, as the 4th overall pick, if you look at the history, most 4th overall picks don't turn into superstars. They just don't. And a lot, even a bigger portion, don't even turn into stars. So because of that, I will say that, you know, depending on how he turns out, if P. Will turns into a consistent 3-and-D guy that plays a bunch of games for you, that plays elite level defense, that can hit an open 3 for you consistently when you need to, that's not a bust to me. Is it living up to the expectations that some have for a 4th overall pick? No, but there's somewhere in between that. We live now in a world that everybody wants to either color something one way or another, where there's a lot of gray in between that. You can not live up to the expectations of a number 4 overall pick, and you can still not be a bust, right? There's several rings between that, and we'll see where P. Will ends up shaking out on that. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Big O.
What's going on, Brother Haize? It's Big O, man. Tell you, happy 2-year anniversary. Hearing your story, man, your journey, doing your podcast, definitely a lot of inspiration, man. You know what I mean? Appreciate that, man. Keep doing your thing. Definitely wanted to call in. I know you asked about the in-game tournament, what the fans, what we felt about it. I'll tell you this. I don't feel personally no way about it. But, you know, just hearing people talk about it, this is what I say. From an athlete perspective, I don't think it's going to matter to the athlete. You know what I mean? Because if for the hoopers, the real hoopers, the people that really love playing basketball that's in the NBA, it's just a little extra motivation. You know, we hear about Michael Jordan. We hear about Kobe Bryant, the utmost, some of the greatest competitors. They just love to win. They don't care if we playing spades, Uno, arm wrestling, tennis. People like that, the real competitors, are going to play the game the same. You know what I mean? I know it's a lot of controversy. People, do it matter? Don't it matter? I say it don't matter to them. Because if you're a basketball player, you should want to go in every game wanting to win anyway. Whether it's in-game tournament, playoffs, regular season, play-in tournament, don't matter. If you playing for my team, you better be going in every game wanting to win. That's what I'll say. From the fan perspective, I do get it. I do understand that they, you might not really care a lot, but, you got to give us some time. Us fans got to give us some time. As far as, adding value to the league and what he's trying to do, what Adam Silver trying to do, I'll say that it's really going to help the younger teams the most. The teams that know they're trying to win a real championship, Mario Brown trophy, not going to move them that much. If they players healthy enough to play, I expect them to play. If they're not, they're going to sit them, and they're not going to care about it. But the Orlando Magic, the Chicago Bulls of the world, the teams that don't get a chance to win nothing seriously, it's going to be a little extra gas for them. Give them something a little bit more meaningful to do and to play for. And that's okay, too. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. We don't need the Celtics and Golden State, everybody trying to win that. Now, if they go out there and do it, like I said, team's healthy, I expect them to try. But if they don't, it ain't going to matter. You know what I mean? Because the real goal is to win the Larry O'Brien. So that's kind of like my feel on it. It don't move me one way or another. I want to see how it pans out. I know it's going to take some time, so that's all I got for you. Hey, keep doing your thing, brother, and I'll be tuning in as usual.
Hey, thank you again for the kind words on the anniversary. It's been 2 years now, and we're going to keep going for 20 more. But with that said, as far as your feelings on the tournament, like the in-season tournament, I go all around on sometimes. Like I see how in a few years it could turn into something. I really do think that there is a chance. I'm not as like down on as like Pat, the designer, my co-host over on Locked on Bulls. He just completely looks at this in-season tournament as being something that's never going to amount to anything. I do think that it's adding importance to regular season games. Hell, it's adding importance to the midpoint of the season, basically in that December area where you're going towards that. And I hope that it does turn into something. Now, you said that players should go into every game, giving 100. Yeah, in a perfect world, in the gladiator world, but that's just not what we live in. These players are getting paid millions of dollars, and guess what? Part of that is they have to keep themselves healthy so that they can get and try to perform in the playoffs. You're never going to get players in the regular season giving 100% every single game of the regular season. It just doesn't happen, right? Now, hopefully the plan of it is, and what you should hope to build as a team is that overall your team and the performance, you get great production from your team, and you don't always need like your star level player to go out there and drop 30 every single night, right? But I think, with these players, this being a business for them too, just like we all have off days at the office, they're going to have off days as well. But, I get what you're saying. I definitely get what you're meaning. And I really do hope that at some point the NBA finds the right balance and this in-season tournament turns into something. Because I told you what, like I said over on Locked on Bulls, the first time that somebody wins the in-season tournament and that team goes on to not even make the playoffs, and I mean, like, of course, if something like injury happens, that's different. But like fully healthy or close to fully healthy, that's gonna be ugly. And I can't wait to see like how the NBA adjusts whenever that does happen, because it will happen at some point. Maybe it doesn't happen until much later down the road after the tournament is established, but eventually that's going to happen. And to watch how the NBA pivots after that happens, that's going to be what makes it special or not. But all right, let's get into the last voicemail for the day. This is from Q.
Hey, Haize, it's me, Q. I wanted to ask you a question. I watched this one YouTube channel, basketball YouTube channel, and they were talking about how there's like a rumor that Joel Embiid might ask for a trade, and the Bulls are actually a team that could possibly get him. So I wanted to ask, if there was a scenario where Embiid asked for a trade out of Philly and we had a chance to get him, do you think it would be worth it to trade Zach to get Embiid? Just a hypothetical. And also, my second question is, I noticed that it seems like the team or like the GM and everything, it's like it seems like they really like Zach LaVine, and I like Zach too. And they're giving him a really good contract and everything like that. But it doesn't really seem like they really trust him to be the leader of the team, or be the leader of the the leader of the team, and really try to build the team around him. So I'm wondering, it's like, if I'm Zach, I'm like, well, you're giving me all this money and you treat me like I'm the star of the biggest star on the team, but you're not actually giving me the keys to the team to actually be able to build the team around me, and be able to do that. Because when you think about it, every good high caliber team or championship team, they always build the team around one or two guys. The Warriors around Steph, Nuggets around Jokic, Bucks around Giannis. There's always that one guy or two guys that they build their team around. So it's like, if we're giving Zach all this money and he's the star of the team, why aren't they actually trying to orchestrate and build a roster around him that actually allows him to play at his best ability? So those are my two questions. Keep up the good work, man, and hopefully I'll be able to send a voicemail tomorrow as well. So, yeah, keep up the good work.
Trade Zach for Embiid. Well, here's what I'll say on that. And like I said, I'm never somebody who's like, you just can't, you absolutely can't trade Zach LaVine. But I do think that if you can get Embiid, if Embiid, for example, went to the Philadelphia 76ers and he said, I want to play in Chicago. Now, theoretically, if he were to say that, he probably wants to play with Zach LaVine, right? But let's just say let's say P. Will develops, Kobe White develops, whatever else it is, and it all comes down, and then we now have this view on things where it's like, oh, Embiid wants to come and play with Patrick Williams. He wants to come and play with Kobe White. He wants to come and play with Ayo Dosunmu. He wants to come and play with Julian Phillips, right? If that ends up happening, you got to trade Zach at that point, right? Joel Embiid, yes, there is injury concerns there. Do not get me wrong. And there's concerns in general, right, with every player. But that's an MVP caliber player. That is a generational talent. That is the type of talent that just by adding them to your team, you're making the playoffs every single year. It's just how far can you go at that point? And I do think that if that in that type of deal, yes, you have to consider moving Zach LaVine. Now, as far as your second question, right? Do the Bulls trust Zach LaVine to be a leader? That's the biggest. I mean, he has to show it, right? I do think that they trust him to a certain degree, a certain level, but I do think that they also look at the Zach LaVine portion and say, hey, we may need better than this. And that's why I've said before, right? I give it 2 more seasons. And then at that point, I do think that AK and Eversley may look at moving Zach LaVine and doing something different. And it may come before then. All the trade rumors that we hear, right? Sometimes most times where there's smoke, there's some fire, right? And while they may be listening to deals now, that may very well change into actively making calls if this Bulls team stays in this area where we're fighting for a play-in over the next 2 years. I truly do believe that the Bulls can come off quite a bit of money at that point in time. So we'll end up seeing. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. That is it for today. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail like you heard today for the mailbag, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.